Okay, welcome to PHP Part 2. Do a quick review of Part 1. PHP is a scripting language that is used to generate websites. It lives on the server. When you make a request to the server, it runs the script, which does a lot of intelligent things. It connects to a database and gets some information, maybe connects to another server, it does some computations, it does whatever it does, and then the ultimate result is to generate HTML that gets sent back to the browser that the user reads. So ultimately, everything you write into a PHP file, all of the script instructions you're going to put between bracket question mark and question mark bracket. Everything you write outside of these is just going to be sent to the browser as HTML. If you want to echo something inside of that to the browser, you can actually write it in the script like this. Echo, and then within quotation marks, whatever the string is that you want to put to the screen. If you want to define a variable, you can use a $sign. I recommend putting the small letter in front of it, so if you have a string which is a phrase of text, I recommend starting with an S, so in this case, let's have $S greeting equals hello, and then echo that to the screen. Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Not donuts today?
So syntax for PHP is everything is enclosed with semicolon. Variables are defined with a single equal sign. You can have string variables. You can have numerical variables. You can have Boolean values, true or false. You can also have arrays, which are groups of values. And we talked also about control structures, which is the ability to break up your script. So instead of going line by line through your script, you're going to go through a set of values. For instance, you can go through an array. Hello? Just reviewing last week. So for instance, you can for each through an array. So in this case, I have created an array of student names, one for each person in the class, and I'm saying for each element in this array, why don't you echo welcome student name and then put in a line break. And so that's just going to create a list on the screen. We talked about for loops in addition to this, where you go through a number. So you want to go through something 10 times. You do a for loop. Equals 1, I is less than or equal to 10, and I increasing each time, then do this. So within these brackets, I is going to be equal to 1, and that's going to run a second time, it's going to be equal to 2, and it's going to keep going until it is no longer less than or equal to 10, at which time it stops. So this will run 10 times. You can also have a while loop. While something is equal to this, run the loop. It will keep running until it is no longer equal to that, and then stop running and keep going with your script. And the danger of that, of course, is getting stuck in an infinite loop where the script will never finish running. So, any questions from last week? So,
I can't see from back here, sorry.
That's right, it's very early.
I tried my glass. It's not working.
So, I mentioned last week that there are three main components to PHP scripts. There's variables, there's control structures, and the other element that we didn't really get into is functions. A function lets you do something in the script. It lets you manipulate the information. And we've been using echo, which is a pseudo function. It's the only function that doesn't require parentheses. That's why it's not technically a function, but it behaves like one in the script. You are giving an instruction to do this to this. You're echoing this to the browser. You're sending some information. There's all kinds of different functions, and there's a wonderful guide online that I'll send to you at php.net, which is the official site supporting this language, where they break down into groups of functions, a nice list. So here's a list of all of the string manipulating functions, and here's one for all of the arrays and so on. Let's run through some of those right now. So we have, for string manipulation, you have very basic string manipulation where you use a dot. So we're taking this string, welcome, comma, space, and we're concatenating it with this dot to connect to this string, which is a variable, and then we're taking another dot and we're applying it to this string, so that glues them all together. If you want to break one up, you would use substring. All functions take the form of the instruction and then the parameters in quotation, parentheses. If you happen to run a function that doesn't have any of those, it's just empty parentheses, but that's what makes it a function. So in this case, let's substring takes the string as a parameter. Let's get the first letter of the student's name instead of that. So substring has three parameters. First you define what the string is, then you define what the first letter is you want to start with. Remember, PHP always starts counting from 0 instead of starting from 1. It's a quirk of programming languages. And you say, how many letters do you want to count? So in this case, as if I'm going to put this within this for each loop, instead of writing it as a function on the line, let's say I'm going to echo it here. So in this case, I'm not saying welcome Marianne, welcome Jules, welcome Andrea. I'm saying welcome M, welcome J, welcome A. Instead, I've just cut off the first letter, and I'm just using that. If I want to use the first three letters, like that. If I want to start counting from the third letter, and I'll use 1, I would change that. Actually, this will be the third letter, I'm sorry. PHP is very confusing.
0, right? 0, 1, 2.
It starts counting, PHP always counts from 0 up, not 1 up.
Is it automatically when you give substring value, it correlates with the string right above it?
Mm-hmm. Because I've already...
One previous, so if you had multiple strings, you had to make sure you kept it with it, or is there a way to call to a certain string?
Sure. In this case, I've already defined sgreeting up higher in the script, so I can refer to that if I want to. Value only exists within these, within this control structure, this for each loop. And in this case, I'm saying the first name of each person within that array. So it only exists outside of that. If I try to refer to value down here, it's going to go with whatever the last time that dollar value was defined. So in this case, we maybe want to we want to replace a letter. You can use a string replace for that. Where we're replacing, let's say we want to replace all of the I don't know.
Can you replace the name to the last name?
Sure. Let me show you that example in a second. That's going to get a little more complicated. Let's replace M with lowercase m for some reason. The information is being given to us that way, and we want it in lowercase. Right? It's coming out of a database in uppercase. We want it to be lowercase, so we can do string replace the old value with the new value, and then what the variable name is. And one thing you may notice between these is that what order the parameters are in tends to shift between the functions. That's because PHP it's an open source language. It was created by different people at different times. What made sense to one person doesn't necessarily make sense to another, and that's often a criticism that people have learning this language, is that it's not consistent with itself. As far as the order of the variables, you just kind of get used to it. You come up with little mnemonics. I think out with the old, in with the new. That's how I remember the order of the parameters in this one. You just come up with ways of remembering them. But you always have php.net. You can just go right to that site and type in the name of the function, and it gives you right there what the parameters are in order and which ones are optional.
So that wouldn't return like lowercase m, like 2 m's, lowercase m, and then Marianne. It would know to take to just have one m.
Right.
Like the x value wouldn't return the whole name, the $sign value.
In this case, actually, it's just going to replace the letter. So if it finds it in this string right here, it's going to look for the capital M and replace it with a lowercase m.
Okay, but it wouldn't put like 2 m's in a row.
Right.
Okay.
In this case, Travis doesn't have an m in it, so it wouldn't do anything to it. But if you're saying like if we had
would it do that?
Marianne with an extra m in it, for instance, it would actually turn both of these into lowercase.